bless Nigeria. The national implementing partner, the Rural Electrification Agency, the financier, United Nations Global Environment Facility, GEF, the United Nations Implementing Agency, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, welcomes dignitaries, invited guests, and participants to Stratton Hotel, Asokoro, Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, today being the 29th September year of our Lord 2022. We're all here for the Africa Minigrids Program Inception workshop, a United Nations development program designed as a child project to implement the agency's energizing agricultural program. It is a program which will impact directly on over 70,000 beneficiaries, out of which a focus on over 34,000 women, and will also provide a lifetime global environmental benefit estimated at 74.2 kilotons carbon dioxide equivalent, as well as contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals 7.
I'd like to thank you all for your presence here today and to appreciate the consistent support that the agency continues to receive from all and sundry. The quality of support and collaboration with the UNDP, the Global Energy Facility, Rocky Mountain Institute, the Federal Ministry of Environment, and other local global stakeholders has greatly enabled us to meet the objectives of the agency. This Inception workshop of the Africa Minigrid Program is another testament to the quality leadership at the REA, headed by the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Engineer Ahmed Salihijo Ahmed, as well as the guidance we have continued to receive from the Federal Ministry of Power and other partner agencies. We must continue to encourage productive collaborations, catalyzing the business of off-grid electrification, stimulating the productive use ecosystem, while also ensuring the sustainable implementation of all our projects. Lastly, we must never underestimate the power of research and innovation within this ecosystem.
The Africa Minigrids project is significant to Nigeria because it will ensure satisfactory quality of life for people and promoting economic development with benefits such as improved human well-being and social equity, while reducing environmental risk and ecological scarcity.
If you want to go fast, they say, you go alone. But if you want to go farther, you go together. I think the importance of this workshop, if you ask me, is in the collaboration between the various parties, including the REA, the UNDP, the GEF, and its various partners, including the Federal Ministry of Environment and the Federal Ministry of Power. Of course, the UNDP, representing the United Nations in the world, plays an important role when we're talking about development. It is great to see that finally the world is coming around to the arguments of the developing countries, that if we are going to talk about the environment, if we're going to talk about the sustainability of the world and that we live in, we must factor the most important occupant of that environment, which is the human race. And the development of that human race cannot neglect the needs of the global south, where you have at least 40 to 50% of the global population still struggling with basic necessities of life, including electricity, economic development, hunger, poverty. We cannot exclude their development at the expense of repairing the climate.
And seize this opportunity to welcome you all to this very important Inception workshop designed by the development partners, ourselves and other stakeholders in furtherance of our agency's mandate and other global aspirations that we have. I must commend the UNDP, GEF, and other partner institutions who have continued to support our agency in our mandate while pushing us a step further at every point of our journey towards equitable energy access in the country. What gives me pleasure, to be very honest, is if we look around and see that we're deliberately designing programs and we're bringing stakeholders of relevant agencies on board. For me, I don't believe you should dabble into something you don't know, and you should always be in a situation to learn from the experts. That is why when I see myself sitting next to seasoned professionals from the Federal Ministry of Environment, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Federal Ministry of Power, it gives me pleasure to say that we are trying to design these programs in such a way that we continue to ensure that that institutional knowledge is being sustained. So this workshop is also another testament to the invaluable support that we continue to receive from the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Power, as well as all other key stakeholders, to understand what our goal of sustainable and universal electrification of rural communities means to all of us all. It's very easy for us to speak about it, but frankly, seeing the effect for me is what gives me continuous joy. I know my colleagues here, the EDs, will testify to when we go and commission some projects. I mean, lately, even my eyes have been more open to some of this impact. What one streetlight does to an individual, I have not seen anything like that before, to be very, very honest. I find it amazing that just because you have been able to deliver one streetlight, to a community, you realize that, it has so much impact, and the joy you see in their eyes, I mean, it's invaluable. And for me, it's what wakes me up every day to deliver on this mandate given to me by the federal government of Nigeria. I feel the Africa Minigrids Program is actually designed to increase the financial viability of these projects while promoting a scaled-up commercial investment in mini-grids in Nigeria. And it has also been designed deliberately to collaborate with one of our other programs, which is the Energizing Agriculture Program, which has been launched a few months ago. And I think it's a very unique opportunity to make us understand that if we actually work together, we can work towards a common goal. I've seen programs designed that would have conflicting expectations that end up being counterproductive. But today, I think with this sort of collaborations, we have an opportunity to demonstrate that we are able to work further together as opposed to working fast individually. After we declare this program open, I do sincerely expect a lot of interactions. I expect a lot of ideas, and please, nothing here is sacrosanct. Nothing. Any ideas you have, bring them to the table. Let's not be confined by what you see on pieces of paper. Some of these things are put together for us to kickstart conversations. I want this workshop to be very collaborative. Let's understand the program. Let's bring our ideas to the table so that we can design something that we can all implement. So without much ado, I will declare this Inception workshop open, and I sincerely look forward to the outcomes to see how we can move this program forward.
Thank you very much. This ovation is for everybody.
But it's really important also that you all understand that the AMP, as we call it, child project in Nigeria, is actually part of the Africa Minigrids Program, which is quite a large program, at least for UNDP. It's our largest program on energy access to date. And what is interesting, I think, for Nigeria more particularly, is that actually the child project in Nigeria, and as was mentioned in the introduction, is at the same time a child project of the AMP program, but also in Nigeria a child project of the Energizing Agriculture Program. And that is linked to the fact that even though you will see that through AMP, we are trying to have a bit of a common structure for the national projects, we still, of course, look at every country individually and what are the particularities. And then, we try to look for a niche where AMP national projects can have really a significant contribution to the sector. So as I was saying, this is a key flagship program for UNDP that is implemented in partnership with first of all, supported by the Global Environment Facility. So most of the national projects, including Nigeria, are funded by the GEF. We have a few, nevertheless, that are funded by UNDP and others by AFDB, but the large majority is funded by the GEF, who we, of course, thank a lot for this initiative. And then we also have technical partners, including AFDB and Rocky Mountain Institute through this program. So the objective of the program is really to try to bring scaled-up commercial investment in the mini-grid sector, by increasing their commercial viability, because we know that, mini-grids in countries like Nigeria, for instance, are already kind of well established. It's already well experienced, but nevertheless, they still face a lot of challenges in terms of commercial viability and sustainability. And therefore, what we are trying to do here is really to find ways to reduce the cost of mini-grids, and therefore also make them more viable. So in terms of funding, we are speaking of about $45 million overall. It's a technical assistance program, but we still do some investment, mostly in the form of CapEx subsidy to mini-grid pilots. So we have this regional project, which is implemented by UNDP in partnership with Rocky Mountain Institute. And we have 5 components here. And as you can see on the slide, what we try to show here is that the regional project sits a bit as an interface in between the national projects, which it is supporting, of course, and then the mini-grid ecosystem as a whole. So it has on one hand a role of supporting the national projects and interacting with them. So UNDP has a bit of a dual role, I would say, for this program, and maybe that links to the next presentation. For the project itself, national projects like Nigeria, it's a project implemented by REA, so it's nationally implemented. Here, UNDP has an oversight role. So it has a role of checking basically that, the project is implemented as it should be according to the rules, to the GEF operations and procedures, and then UNDP's procedures, etc.
The mandate of the agency is based around 3 dimensions: promoting rural electrification in the country, coordinating electrification programs, and administering the Rural Electrification Fund to promote, support, and provide rural electrification through public-private participation. The REA has fairly ambitious objectives and aspirations for the year 2030, and you're talking 10,000 mini-grids, 5 million SHS, 10 million connections. A lot of work has to be done, and this is one contribution to achieving those objectives. The program is financed by the Global Environment Facility, supported by the United Nations Development Program. The national implementation partner, of course, is the REA. Grant amount is $5.91 million. The co-financing is estimated to be $96.5 million. So that's what we expect as the multiplier effect from the implementation of this program. Duration is 48 months. And the overall objective is to support access to clean energy by increasing the financial viability and promoting scaled-up investment. In mini-grids in Nigeria, this is designed as a child project of the Energizing Agriculture Program. Just to set the context, upon resumption of the Managing Director in early 2020, the board and management of the REA designed a 5-year vision and strategic roadmap for the agency. And that entails 4 strategic priorities: implement and coordinate, promote sustainable market, excellence in delivery, and finally focus on the unserved and underserved, and increase economic opportunities for the unelectrified. And out of this particular part of the priorities was born the Energizing Agriculture Program, specifically targeting unserved and underserved communities with a focus on unlocking the opportunities in the agriculture value chain. The program aims to accelerate deployment of agriculture electrification interventions by testing business models and producing proof points to scale up investment. 200 communities are to be identified and empowered through financing and data. And also, for the long term, ensure local ownership of solutions as well as local content development. The AMP, as I've already said, is designed as a child project of the AMP, of the Energizing Agriculture Program. The aim is to deploy up to 25 mini-grids to ground truth the electrification of rural communities and agricultural value chains. This will also entail a digitally supported knowledge management through lessons learned, dissemination, roadmaps, data, and other important technical assistance to the industry to spur investment. This case is really predicated on 2 mutually reinforcing realities. Mini-grids have limited impact on livelihoods. This is not to say that we're not seeing benefits. There's a lot of benefits, and I think the MD alluded to how much of a significance just having streetlights is. But we're all ambitious here. We all want to get the best for the country. And in light of this ideal goal, there's still a long way to go, and there's a lot that we can still do as a sector. So currently, mini-grids are unable to stimulate the local economy to the level where we would expect. And secondly, financial viability of mini-grids tends to be limited because demand for productive uses isn't there to the level required. And these 2 factors are mutually reinforcing. A few more observations. So far, productive uses have not really been widely adopted in rural communities. Second point is no viable business models exist, proven, ground-truthed in the country for introducing agricultural productive uses in Nigeria. There's a comprehensive study that was conducted by the Nigeria Power Sector Support Program and the Rocky Mountain Institute, a feasibility study on the productive use stimulation in agricultural value chains and communities that are appropriate for mini-grids. 250 interviewees across 2 states, Kaduna and Cross River. These 2 states were selected because they cover the 2 most prevalent agroecological zones in the country, the semi-arid, the tropical semi-arid zone, and the tropical subhumid zone. 12 crops or 12 value chains covered to identify the immediate opportunities for electrification. The criteria used are 4: local capacity, so capacity of the local actors, strength of local off-grid off-take market, availability of the equipment, and potential for scalability. So this resulted in the classification of these productive use opportunities into 3 tiers: tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 includes those value chains that are ripe for immediate electrification: rice milling, maize grating, and a few other milling activities. Tier 2 are those with medium-term potential that can be unlocked if a few barriers can be broken down, particularly capacity of local actors and the ability to adjust to mechanization, because it requires a lot of behavioral and other changes. And then finally, the tier 3 are those with long-term potential, but they're not available for immediate electrification because there are a number of barriers that require a lot more work to be broken down and can really only realistically be activated once we're able to cross the hurdle with tiers 1 and 2. So these results really provide us a reliable guide to project implementation. So all of this is not just theoretical. On-the-ground studies have been done to really show where the opportunities are, and we want to build on this existing work. The results also led to the identification of 2 potentially viable business models: the facilitator model and the processing center model. The processor model essentially entails the mini-grid developer or another facilitator supporting the local companies, so the processors of local companies, to source the financing and the equipment, and they're just guided by the facilitator with education and connection to financiers to enable them to unlock the opportunity. So this reduces the third-party ownership risk. And the second option is the processing center model, where the mini-grid developer plays a prominent role in this, in that they can invest, own, and operate this business, the processing center, the cold storage facility, or any other productive use activity. And in this case, of course, they take on the operational and credit risk, but they are in full control of these systems. There are advantages and disadvantages. Some developers have the appetite for this, others don't. But I think that the point here to make is that there's a spectrum and there's a number of models that can be employed where whatever the developer is comfortable with or whatever seems to be most viable. And there are various options and different combinations that can be made to make all of this work. The economic case for this has been shown through assessments and simulations, but there are really no documented site-specific studies that we know of that appraise the business case for value addition to crop production and processing from mini-grids. So the AMP will grant truth the electrification of agriculture value chains and then produce proof points on financial performance, demonstrate business model feasibility, and therefore attract investment. So a bit more detail on the components. There are 3 components to this program. As my colleague Crystally outlined, there are 5 or so for the regional program, but for Nigeria, policy and regulation component was taken out because Nigeria has a fairly robust policy and regulatory environment. The first one here is the project and business model innovation with private sector engagement. So to show innovative business models. Second component is innovative financing, also to create innovative financing mechanisms and accompanying financing instruments to incentivize investments in development of low carbon mini grids. Then the third slide will essentially include dissemination, tracking, increased awareness, network opportunities, lessons learned, the sort of the communications aspect of the program, so that knowledge is disseminated. Essentially, that's the main objective here. There's a fourth component in M&E, even though it's not on here. Of course, monitoring evaluation is an important piece to ensure that program implementation is done according to the principles in place. But this is just a follow-on of the 3 components, just dividing the program into various aspects. All in all, this just entails 2 things. One set of activities is project development for the pilots to be deployed, and the other set of activities include the support for the industry, really. So the market intelligence, repository of sites, financing schemes to develop the roadmap for manufacturing, capacity building, and other things that are sort of outward and beyond project implementation, because we believe coupling the two is really what gives us the desired results. So I'm going to stop here and invite my colleague, Mohammed Jibril, who is the technical lead for the Energizing Agriculture Program, to walk us through the Energizing Agriculture Program and the programmatic budgeting under the Technical Services Department of the REA. Over to you, Mohammed.
But the Energizing Agriculture Program, the EAP, has been designed to look at and to tackle and focus on one of the key priorities that REA is looking at, and that is to look beyond providing mini grids to communities, but also looking at the economic lives of people within these rural areas. And agriculture to us is a no-brainer that that it's the basic thing that you would see in almost all rural communities. And it is also MD's key priority, and I think he has spoken this a number of times, that make sure you do projects that are sustainable. Over the years, you come back and see that projects are still functional. There is that productive use, developer is happy, community is happy, there's demand stimulation, and we feel like focusing on the agriculture solves that problem for us as well. And you would see that, I think, in the next few slides, that EAP, that's the Energizing Agriculture Program, is becoming a platform that beyond the AMP alignment with the EAP, you would see that other programs are also funneling into the EAP to use that as a platform to continue finding that nexus between energy and agriculture. There's the programmatic budgeting that is funded by the federal government, and the 2022 is focusing on agriculture, providing solar irrigation pumps to enable dry farming. And I think finally, as the introduction, MD spoke about collaboration, and I'm happy to say that beyond the high-level collaboration with the UNDP, development partners like the RMI, the Ministries of Agri, Water Resources, Environment, Power, we've gone to a granular level of establishing that partnership. And you'd see us working with the likes of FADAMA, you'd see us working with appeals projects, you'd see us working with commodity interest groups like Rice Farmers Association, for example. And this is to acknowledge that it's a strange space for us, and we have some learning to do. And for us to get that nexus together, we have to bring all stakeholders together. So this just further demarcates some of the components, and just a continuation of the conversation we're having. We have the stakeholder collaboration and scaling, just focusing on bringing important stakeholders together and creating that pipeline of project. And then we're hoping that at the end of the day, we have this data repository where we have a number of projects that form a pipeline that we can pick out from to keep developing. We keep sourcing for funds and continue developing the projects. And then the accelerator project that is looking at the mini-grid sites and providing that opportunity and platform for equipment providers and so on to come together and optimize the mini-grids. But what we're trying to do is identify relevant policymakers, stakeholders in all the spaces of the agri and energy, and come together to form that working group. And from that working group, we start to look at early opportunities. Where are these quick win projects? An example could be a cluster of rice milling, rice millers, for example, coming together. But this is also just to emphasize on how we're working to provide this pipeline of projects. We've brought together agencies, ministries, programs, cooperatives, other partners, venturing across technical experts, financial experts, program managers, basically anybody that is interested in putting that effort together to unlock investments and so on. And then we're looking across the submissions, we demarcate them across production, is it a processing, is it cold storage, looking at the value chain basically to see which one requires the most electricity. And this is also to just bring into the focus what REA is doing with the programmatic budgeting. Yeah, so the key thing for us is the nexus with what the REA is doing in institutionalizing these projects and how they are fully aligned with the EAP. So leveraging on what we are trying to do with the working group now to create that pipeline of projects. So we may be happy to implement 20 projects as a pilot maybe in this calendar year, but we're hoping that having that pipeline of project means REA can decide to say next year we'll also funding some projects, and by that time there would have been a pipeline of already audited communities and projects that are just ready to just be funded. There's also the work that we're doing with the accelerator projects. There's the electricity consumption for productive uses. At the end of the day, we feel like there's that alignment that we would have by putting together like institutionalized projects like this with what we're doing with the EAP. Because the programmatic budgeting has already kickstarted and we're already seeing results, we're hoping that there's going to be a lot of lesson learned. We're going to be a lot of pipeline of projects to be utilized across the three projects, the AMP, the EAP, the programmatic budgeting. But at the end of, I think that the key thing for us is to utilize the relationships that we're already establishing, the MOUs we're signing across the projects, the pipeline of projects we're already creating to be able to institutionalize the projects within the REA.
Just to quickly wrap up on the linkages, Mohammed has explained quite a lot on how we're trying to integrate the various programs at the REA and beyond. So with the Energizing Agriculture Program, the first two components, stakeholder collaboration and intersector scaling, and non-market services, which is currently focused on data, is supported by all the non-project development activities under the AMP. So the capacity building, roadmap for promoting local assembly, the financing mechanisms, the lessons learned report to be developed, replication plan, the repository of sites, and the GIS platform to enable decision making, and additional site-specific data collection activities, all in contribution to these first two components of the EAP. As for the third component of the EAP, the Energy Agriculture Innovation Accelerator, as Mohammed explained in detail, there are 5 teams that are currently working on these projects, and they have advanced. We also have the projects under the programmatic budgeting, the solar pumps and the standalone dedicated mini-grids that have also commenced. These are on-ground projects attempting to grant truth these ideas that we have and the objectives to be achieved. And the lessons learned and the early feedback from these projects will provide us with a lot of insight for system design, choice of technology, and the productive use equipment for the pilots under the Africa Minigrids Program. To also just acknowledge that there's also the Rural Electrification Project component on productive use appliances that is also currently testing 5 pilot projects across the country. The early lessons and results from that project will also inform everything we're doing. And we actually in-house have a weekly rhythm across the teams to be updated on activities and to provide each other with the information to ensure that we're working on the same page and we build on everything we're doing so that there's enough cohesion.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to invite Dr. Sanusi Ohiare, the Executive Director of Rural Electrification Fund, to please come and give us his presentation on management structure of the program. Please applaud as he comes.
Thank you very much, Al-Hassan. For the program, there is a project steering committee, or if you like, a project board that is in charge of monitoring the activities and ensuring that the milestones of the program is being met. And some of these milestones include the appraisal of the annual project implementation reports, including the quality assessment rating reports. Another objective would be to revise and appraise project plans while addressing any project level grievances, ensure highest levels of transparency, and take all measures to avoid the real or perceived conflicts of interest, approve the project inception reports, review combined delivery reports prior to certification, and review the final project reports.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from that very brief tea break. We want to take Uchenna, who's representing Muyiwa Oyedele, the team lead Sustainable Development of UNDP, on the topic, the GEF, operations and M&E requirements for the program. Let's please welcome Uchenna, joining us remotely. Uchenna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Because it's a GEF project within a UNDP space, we are required to acknowledge and contribute to the reporting systems of both GEF and UNDP. which is what you're seeing here, the GEF annual report, PIRO, and also the GEF auditors, and as well, very importantly, also the midterm evaluation and the terminal evaluation of the project, which would also be done to meet the requirement as well as the UNDP requirement. On the UNDP side, also would required to provide information on a quarterly basis for the quarterly reports, which the templates will be shared. We have what we call ROA, which is the results-oriented annual report for the whole country office, and this project will also be making contributions to that report through its quarterly report, and of course the transparency report, also information that will be required. Now, people sometimes ask, what is monitoring? This is not going to be an exhaustive presentation on monitoring, but just to say that it's what we mean by this is basically asking questions about the project progress towards the target. Are we reaching the targets? Are we moving towards that target? It's slightly different from asking the question, are we doing what we're supposed to do? Because when you ask the question, are we doing what we're supposed to do, you'll be looking at the activities in the plan, are we implementing it? However, when you're asking the question, are we achieving the results towards the target we want, you now start looking at the indicators, measuring milestones and results that are expected from the activities. So the project team is required to not only implement activities, but collect information related to the intention of those activities, the changes that are expected to happen, which we call results, analyze them, and start also using it to adjust the project, ensuring that what we're spending money on is yielding the desired results. And you do this using the project result framework, which has been developed by the project. So it will ask, so in line with that, I already talked about it, you will have to be responding to a number of things, the annual monitoring reports of GEF, as well as the UNDP one, and it's outlined in these areas, including providing that information in the GEF platform on the how, and also in the UNDP platform. Like I said, we'll have more in-depth discussion with the MIE team in regards to this, so that they would get all the tools and support, and we'll also be providing ongoing support. Now, why is this important? Why should we bother with monitoring what we're doing? It's because, one, the money is not our own, and we're accountable for that money. We need to also show that the money has been used for the purpose it's been intended for, and we are moving towards the desired result. There's a problem we have, which this project is intended to solve. We need to show that that problem is being solved. The lessons learned from it, to document it, and this is what we do internally. And of course, later on, there's going to be an external independent evaluation to check that what we have been doing and reporting is actually true. Okay, that's why we have the external consultants coming in to do an Inception report, look at our core indicators, look at our financing procedures, and conduct evaluation. And we'll have an opportunity to do a management response, which is the opportunity to reflect on the evaluation results and make some changes to the project. Then also doing that will require using the GEF core indicators, and the information is not just for documentation, it's to be used by the project team, the governing partners, and everybody, stakeholders, to make sure that we are improving the project and is being responsive to the situation on ground. The project was designed with some assumptions. Those assumptions may change as we progress in implementing. So it's information important that helps us to adjust as the need arises. I thank you for listening.
For those who are online, who have joined this activity remotely, we are about to have the breakout session, and it doesn't exclude you. You can send in your observations or your questions or recommendations through chat, of which it will be collated and then presented before the three topics that will be in the breakout session. To coordinate this breakout session, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to invite the AMP project manager back here again, Mala Nasser Ibrahim, to lead. Thank you.
Thank you. So for online participants, just throw in your questions or any observations in the chat, and we'll endeavor to answer the questions and also acknowledge any observations. For those of us here physically, we'd like to be divided into two groups. One group to take on component one, innovative business models, essentially the projects to be developed, the various outputs that contribute to that. And then the second group on innovative financing, the various supports that will have financing mechanism, for example, and all other aspects really around ensuring that the projects can be funded and funded sustainably. And on that note, we'll be on the lookout for all online participants, their questions and observations, while we'll let the teams on ground to assemble and begin the brainstorming session. Thank you. For online participants, we'll await your questions and observations. Just drop those in the chat and we'll record them. If there are questions, we'll endeavor to answer. Thank you. And the slide on here just gives you a bit more information about component 1. We'll be swapping between component 1 and 2 just to allow you to be able to read, and perhaps you'll have some questions or observations. Hello everyone, we'll start the presentation for the breakout sessions. We're going to take group 1, that's the group on component 1, innovative business models. This will be taken by Dr. Habiba Dagash. Over to you.
Thanks, Nasser. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm just going to provide a summary of all that we discussed as group 1 in terms of some of the risks associated with some of the outputs under the component 1, at the same time some solutions and recommendations as well. So we didn't go through in detail all the activities, but I can give like the most important points that we covered.
Thank you, Dr. Habiba. These are really excellent points. So I'll call on the second group taking on component 2, that's innovative financing, to come to the podium to present their findings.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Standing on the existing protocol, we are in group 2, and I'm representing the group. So just a quick one. We dealt with components 2 and component 3.
And 2, so many valuable inputs. It will take a long time if I will try and summarize all of these, but I'll just quickly walk through with the aim of giving some quick answers to certain questions that I have answers to. Others, obviously, are noted, and we'll incorporate them as we begin implementation. There's a potential risk identified under output 1.1 about equipment providers and businesses being engaged while developing business models. Absolutely, this is well noted. It's something that will be done, and we expect that the development of these models will be done hand in hand with the developers as well as these key actors in a two-way relationship, essentially. Validating success, yes, there will be lessons learned project, so with the report ultimately, so all of these things will be captured. Leverage tech for M&E, absolutely. This project is digital, will have a digitally enabled approach. Things like having remote monitoring on projects for in terms of power production and other things will all be included. So there's a detailed digital project strategy for the project, and the comments are well noted. Gender equity and demonstration of impact, especially ensuring the value created is captured or distributed across different groups, the vulnerable groups. There's an actual gender action plan, and we plan to onboard a gender expert to support and ensure that all of this is gender sensitive, in addition to ensuring that this value creation for other vulnerable groups beyond just representation of women. Jumping onto component 2, I'll also do the same to answer some questions. Timings of Financial Advisory Committee, the terms of reference to be developed will specify all of these things, so point well taken. CBN should set up a special fund. This is an interesting point, and we've noted it's something to think about and explore. Hopefully we're able to pull it off. The points around capacity building are also taken for in-house, or something we'll definitely look at. Potential financiers, yes, some were invited, but representation was not in. But of course, this is just the beginning of the project. Part of the work will be to have financial institutions actually being actively part of all of this. So they certainly will not be neglected because they're a key stakeholder in all of this. So thank you. We've noted the comment anyway still. GIS information, absolutely. We have some provisions to collect data. That's in addition to the work that the Energizing Agriculture Program team, led by Mohammed, are currently doing to actually gather primary data across the country, because we understand that many of these existing databases are outdated. Time frame for application plan, that is at the end of the project. So between year 3 and 4, after the lessons learned report is produced, the learnings from that would inform the replication plan. So this would be at the tail end of the program. Community associations should be included in the training. This is also a point taken, and will ensure that that is done at the appropriate juncture. So that's it as a summary and as a quick response to some of the questions. This has really been helpful. In view of time, I'll stop here and just invite Madam Ngozi Chimdi Ejogu, the Deputy Director, Bilateral Funds at the Rural Electrification Fund, to deliver the closing remarks and vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on already existing protocols. On behalf of the Rural Electrification Agency, it's my pleasure to give the vote of thanks at this memorable Inception workshop. I want to thank the Global Environmental Facility and the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, for having confidence and allowing us to be the implementers of the Africa Minigrid program. And I also want to thank all the stakeholders here present for coming on this journey with the Rural REA, having confidence that we will implement this project, this program, which will not only provide one of the most basic needs of the rural dwellers in Nigeria, but also that which will impact the livelihoods of many people. I want to thank everyone here present that is here for your involvement, your willingness to go on this journey with us and ensure that this program is implemented properly in practical ways and measures. I thank you all for your time, and I pray that in not so distant a time, we shall also gather again to celebrate the many successes that will come with the Africa Minigrid program. It's been a pleasure having each and every one of you here today, and I thank you. Have a very good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. On that note, this is the end of the event. And there's lunch downstairs for everyone. Sorry to our online participants. We cannot really be unable to deliver food across, but maybe in the future with technology, food can be teleported somehow. So yeah, this is it. Thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, let's head for lunch and then we'll head home. I wish everyone a safe journey back home. Thank you all for coming.